This is Talk Radio 702.
Talk Radio 702.
Your number one news and talk station.
16 minutes past 6 o'clock. And of course, as Tim alluded to this earlier on, we have a very weird species sitting here in the studio with us this morning. He is a young man who is very much interested in birds, and I'm sure most of you would not find that too weird or too disturbing. However, he likes the feathered variety in this instance, and we'll be chatting now to John. Good morning, John.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning, John. We're chatting to John Kinghorn. John is, as you say, John, you enjoy bats and various other things, but the main thrust of this morning is, why do you want to go and look at birds? I mean, come on, I can understand. And you want to get 800 birds. Why don't you just go to Clifton or one of those beaches? You can get more than 800 birds in the morning, and they all look different.
Well, Tim, I really started birding quite a few years back when I was actually in grade 7, so about 13 years old. And ever since then, it took flight, if you may, my obsession. And it's eventually I started seeing people go ahead with this thing called a birding big year, and I asked myself, well, what is a birding big year? And in South African terms, it's seeing, as you said, 800 species of bird in a calendar year. And this whole idea of a birding big year managed to bite me, so the bug bit me. And now I find myself planning to see 800 species of bird in a year next year in Southern Africa. And you ask why, and it's a challenge to me, and I very much enjoy challenges. And what's nice is that it's a challenge in an area which I love.
John, when you say the 800, is there a particular reason that it's 800? Is that a significant number for anything other reason than we've only got 700 in the country?
If you look on, as you said, our bird species in Southern Africa, there's only plus or minus 960 in totality. And only about 750 plus or minus of those species are actually resident in our country, and the rest are migrants. Now, there's only an, if you may, elite group of people who have ever seen 800 species of bird in Southern Africa, and that's really it's an amazing achievement. So 800 is top of the top with regards to life lists, if you may. A life list is a list that one keeps over their lifespan of all the birds that they've seen. So it's having seen 800 birds in one's lifetime is a phenomenal achievement, let alone 800 species in a calendar year.
Now, this kind of fascinates me because bird tickers are a different breed. And the reason I say this is we were working up on the Diamond Route property, or just to the side of the Diamond Route properties, some years back when we were filming the journey through the routes, through the diamonds of conservation. And we were working with a brown hyena that was busy chomping on a seal, I think. And it was really great, great footage. And this car roared up, the doors flew open, and 4 individuals bailed out. They kind of fell out of it. And they shouted out, "Barlow's Lock." And I said, "What the hell's that?" And they said, "Well," I said, "Oh, one of those," and pointed to the, which all 4 descended, looked at each other, ticked it off, and we said, "Brown hyena." They said, "No, mate. Sorry, we're now going another 300 kilometers to go and find another bird." And I thought, hang on a minute, John, is that what you're going to be doing? Roaring around the country, falling out your motor car and ticking off birds?
Essentially, yes. However, I'm going to try my best to enjoy the sights, the sounds, and the cultures of the country, purely because I haven't experienced them before, and it's one of the aspects of my big year next year, which I really am looking forward to. But as you said, the birders, or twitchers as we call them, are a different breed.
Yeah, a very, very different breed. Now, where is this going to take you to? When you say Southern Africa, where are we going?
Essentially, it includes South Africa, Lesotho, Swaziland, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique. So it's the whole southern part of Africa, and it's those countries.
Now,
Sorry about that. Because what I find fascinating is obviously this is a huge thing that you're embarking on. So, I mean, the practicality behind it, how much time are you going to spend on the road? How much time are you going to spend away from the family? And all those types of interesting implications.
I was speaking to Tim the other day actually about this, and I'm going to be spending plus or minus 360 of the 365 days next year traveling.
Wow.
So, I'm the first quarter, I've divided the year into quarters, and up until March, I'm really only going to be home for about 5 days in totality. The rest of the time, I'm going to be traveling the country, going berserk, trying to reach my first quarter targets.
Listening to that, John's going to want a fuel sponsor. John, now, how do you do this? Where do you start? When do you start?
I'm starting here in Joburg. The first and second, I'm doing birding around Joburg and Pretoria, trying to nail all these common garden species. And then on the 3rd to the 20th, I head off to South Central and Western Namibia, trying to nail all the endemics and the endemics in that area. And then I come back. And there was a change of plans actually yesterday. I was supposed to head down to the Western Cape to make a pelagic, but that's been shifted to February. So I have a week at the moment, which I'm going to fill. I'm most probably going to head down to the Lesotho Highlands and the Drakensberg, trying to connect with mountain pipits and bearded vulture and all those lovelies.
Now, when you say that you're going to be heading down to a pelagic trip, explain the pelagic trip to people, and do you get seasick?
Seasickness, from what I've heard, I've personally never been on a pelagic before, but I've heard that when one does go on a pelagic, you can suffer from seasickness. So those preventative pills are necessary, or even as a precaution. But essentially, what a pelagic is you head out on a boat and you follow. It's a boat of birders, and you follow the trawlers in the area, or that specific boat releases fish and stuff like that, and it attracts all the seabirds. And now, of course, all these pelagic species go absolutely berserk, and it's an absolute feeding frenzy out there, especially when the boats are following the trawlers. It's amazing the species that one can see, and seabirding and pelagic birding as a whole is completely different to the birding we experience here inland and along the coast. It's a completely different area of birding.
Well, just to really make you look forward to it, seasickness, you feel sick, you get sick, you think you're going to die, and then you just want to. It's a lovely feeling, and then once you get over it, don't try and walk on the shore, because the shore moves all over the place. Okay, now, setting off, you wanting to be the youngest birder to do this, how old are you? That's an interesting question we haven't touched on.
Currently, I'm 18. If I manage to reach 800 next year, I highly doubt my birthday's in March, so I highly doubt I won't reach 800 by March. So by the time I reach 800, I'll be 19. So the current record is held by Trevor Hardacre, who's based in Cape Town, and he actually ticked 800 species of bird in a calendar year when he was age 24. So
wow.
So if I manage to to reach that 800 next year, I'll break the record by 5 years and set it at 19.
Now, as you hurl out of this, though, hang on, this is something that's fascinating me. You know, wherever you go and you see guys climbing Mount Everest, diving out of helicopters, jumping out of aeroplanes, deep diving to the coelacanths, etc., and the diver is there and the action man is there. There's always a photographer behind him.
Yeah.
And I always love that, you know. The old photographer doesn't get a name in there anywhere. How do you do this? Do you go along now, John, and say, hey, okay, I got to take Mom, Dad, and little Sue along to go and tick off all the birds with me? Who verifies what you're doing?
This whole concept of a birding big year and somebody's life list in general is based on the honor system. So obviously, if you go out there, you can easily falsify a record and be like, oh, well, I just saw this amazingly rare bird, and add it to your year list, but you're going to make your name chop. And you're going to ruin your reputation amongst the whole community, the birding community and the wildlife community as a whole. So, but what people do like to do is just so that there is no questioning when you reach that target at the end of the year, is they like to bring their mates along or somebody to just go birding with, not only to verify a record, if you may, but just to spend time out in the bush and enjoy what you're seeing, these amazing sights, smells, and sounds with the mates of yours, and just enjoy being out in the bush. So it's based on the honor system. You'd like to get a photograph of the bird that you see for personal reference and memories, but also to verify a record and share what you've seen to the rest of the community.
I presume a book is going to come out after this.
Yeah, I hear something in this order. How do you go to your mates who've obviously all heading off to the pub, heading off to do other things, and say to them, I'm going birding? Because this is one of the questions is how do you encourage young folk into the world of biodiversity?
It's tough, and I was actually speaking to there's a group of birders at the moment who are varsity students, quite late years in their varsities, and they really are. They're tight and they're phenomenal birders. And they're inspirational to the younger generation. But when it comes to my generation, and even the generations that are still in school, it's not cool to do birding in school and to do anything wildlife related, in fact, during school, and often one gets castigated, and sadly that's society today. But it's quite a few of my friends and the people in my school actually respect what I do, and that's nice. But I was speaking to one of those varsity student birders, and she was telling me how mainly birders only come out of the closet, if you may, when during their varsity years, because they're free. They can express how they want to feel, and that's so it's tough to get birders who are still in school. It really is, and they only really start, like I said, coming out of the closet, if you may, during their varsity years, which is unfortunate, but it's
Now, you're also going to be taking photographs and all, and supporting the ADU, the Animal Demography Unit's project, in particular Mammal Map and Sabat too.
That is true. I'm going to be trying my best next year to contribute to as many conservation initiatives as possible. Obviously, I want to make sure I have a valued input to all of these organizations which are doing fantastic work out of there, while we sit on our backsides watching TV. And it's the ADU is one of those. I'm going to be submitting all of my data. Obviously, I'm traveling extensively, and I'm going to be collecting a fair amount of data and submitting all of this data to the ADU projects, which is a fantastic conservation initiative.
If I can weigh in on this one, John, because what I find amazing is the fact that, at your age, you have such a love for nature. The amount of work that you're going to be doing in the next year, I think it's just phenomenal, to be quite frank. And what I'd like to ask you is, and I think young people need to start taking an interest in nature and in the environment. How do you sustain this type of thing, and how does it become, contagious? How do you spread this type of thing?
It's I don't know. For me, it was a case of upbringing. My parents really did. The minute I was born, 8 months old, I went to my first trip to the Kruger Park, and since then I've been going to the bush. And every single day they would, bring to my awareness the conservation initiatives that are going on in our country and the problems that we're facing and how one needs to respect nature. So it was constantly, fed to me, if you may, throughout my childhood. And if I have to relate back to birding, how did I get, how can one find it interesting? First of all, when I started birding, I didn't, it was a case of opening up a book and seeing how to identify this francolin on the side of the road. And to me, that didn't really appeal. And then all of a sudden, a friend of mine who was a bird at the time and had been for about 7 or 8 years already, said to me, why not tick the birds and count them and create a list? And the minute I saw that, the bug bit. And since then, the ticking of the birds, the minute you see it in the book and putting that tick next to the species just gives me a sense of satisfaction. So, yeah.
John, we're going to unfortunately have to blast the news now, so if you can not leave your seat as we come out of the other side of news, just want to ask you contact details so people can follow your trip, and then we'll get back to that in a short while. Gushwell, it's amazing though when you do listen to the amount of planning that's got to go behind this.
Okay.
And of course, you are dealing with nature. So a case of, I think I'm going to go and see an Angola pitta tomorrow, and it says, no, mate, I'm disappearing. And then you'll drive along, and there's a lamachai above your head, and the last thing they think, well, can I go and watch it? No, it does something else.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, wildlife doesn't read the instruction manual.
Sure, definitely. And we're looking at almost 2.5 birds a day for John on his trip here. Definitely. And of course, half a bird doesn't exist. But we wish you all the best. And we'll continue this conversation after the 6:30 news.
You're listening to Talk Radio 702, your number one news and talk station.
27 minutes to go before we get to 7 o'clock. And to wrap up our chat with John, in studio, Tim is going to shoot off with 1 or 2 questions for the young man that's embarking on a trip, birding of all interesting things.
John, if first of all, if you had to look at one thing that you need for your trip, what would that be? Do you have a good lens for your camera?
I'm currently using a second-hand camera, Nikon D90 with a 70 to 300 millimeter Nikkor lens, and it does sufficient work, I must admit, in terms of wildlife. However, for birding, I find I struggle a bit. So, as you said, I'm asking for sponsors, or requesting for sponsors for next year, purely because I'm doing this by myself, with the support of already I have quite a few sponsors who are helping me out sufficiently, and some who are giving big and some who are giving small. But either way, I list them at the end of the day. I list them all on the same level, purely because at the end of the day, if I reach at 800, or should I say when I reach at 800, they will help me get there. And that's the most important thing. So I am appealing for sponsors, because a big year is a very, very costly thing, and that's what quite a few people don't understand. But when you actually sit down and you start planning the year as a whole, you realize the costs involved. So
R3.89 a kilometer, I can tell you that straight off. All right, so there is that out. And John, if people want to follow you, how do they go about doing that?
I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and I have a blog. I must state they're fairly inactive at the moment, with just one or two progress reports leading up to next year, but come January 1, they're going to be full-blown active. Twitter, it's at Birding Big Year. My blog spot is John Kinghorn's birdingbigyear.blogspot.com, and it's birdingbigyear.blogspot.com, and my Facebook page is John Kinghorn's Southern African Birding Big Year.
Well, if you are into Facebook, Twitter, and blogs, about the only one of those I understand is the blog, you'll find them all. John, best of luck on it. Hopefully, we have said that while you're on your journey, we're going to chat to you from time to time as well, find out where you are, what you're doing, and what your numbers are doing. And we'd like to hear, most definitely, the word 799. And don't go out with a shotgun to get number 800. Best of luck, young man, and have yourself a wonderful trip. And we look forward to the report backs and a glass of celebratory champagne at the end.
Thanks so much, guys.